We have some absolutely shattering news coming out of the entertainment world involving the former spouse of Baywatch icon David Hasselhoff. It has been confirmed that Pamela Buck was discovered lifeless in her residence, having tragically taken her own life with a firearm. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner has since weighed in on the heartbreaking situation, noting that she was just 62 years old at the time of her passing. Now, in the wake of this shocker, David's daughter Taylor has stepped forward, shattering the silence with a tribute to her late mom that is tearing everyone up. After keeping a low profile for weeks to process the trauma, Taylor is finally addressing the devastating loss of her mother, Pamela Buck Hasselhoff, who passed away on March 5th, 2026. Official reports from the Los Angeles Medical Examiner have verified the grim details, ruling the cause of death as a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. The entire Hasselhoff clan is reeling from this catastrophe, but Taylor's recent public statement has given us a heartbreaking glimpse into the family's private grief. You are going to want to stick around for this whole segment, believe me, because the details here hit a lot harder than your average celebrity headline. Taylor Hasselhoff officially opens up with a tear-jerking memorial that has the whole internet talking. It took days of total radio silence and stepping back from the limelight, but Taylor Hasselhoff Fiore finally mustered up the courage to say what needed to be said. She chose to share her pain via a gut-wrenching Instagram story on Wednesday, March 12th, turning her private nightmare into a public declaration of love and loss. At 34 years old, the daughter of the television legend decided that being real was more important than keeping a stiff upper lip during this crisis. She stripped away the filters and the PR polish to talk about losing her mom, Pamela, in a way that felt incredibly raw, authentic, and universally relatable. You could tell immediately that this wasn't some hastily typed PR statement released just to satisfy the press. No, this read like something born out of sleepless nights and deep reflection, as if she wrestled with the agony before deciding to let the public peek behind the curtain. Posting a series of touching snapshots, Taylor conveyed a level of devastation that you can't really sugarcoat. You can only survive it. Anyone scrolling through that post could practically feel the weight of her grief pressing through the screen. I mean, where do you even start when you lose your mum? How do you put that kind of soul-crushing void into a caption? Taylor didn't try to be poetic. She just aimed for the brutally honest truth. In her emotional homage, she referred to Pamela as her forever angel and admitted she would trade absolutely anything on this earth just to feel her mother's arms around her one last time. That sentiment right there, that speaks to a lifetime of deep, unconditional connection that doesn't just fade away. She didn't stop there, dropping descriptions that proved their bond was unbreakable. She called Pamela her best friend, her entire heart, and the centre of her world. Let's be real, you don't use words like that just because it's the right thing to say on social media. That level of adoration comes from decades of being in the trenches together, sharing every laugh, every tear, and every secret life through at them. Taylor confessed that the heartache feels impossible to survive right now, but she vowed to stay strong, to honour Pamela, promising to cherish their memories until they meet again on the other side. It is impossible to read a tribute like that without getting choked up. It makes you stop and think about your own folks and the people you love, doesn't it? When the Hasselhoff heiress finally broke her silence, she didn't do it with a big press conference or a dramatic interview. But make no mistake, the quiet power of her words was enough to freeze everyone in their tracks. It was dripping with genuine emotion and the kind of vulnerability that you simply cannot manufacture for likes or clout. Followers were left completely floored, not just by the tragedy, but by the intense humanity on display. This goes way beyond celebrity gossip. This is real life. Don't click away, because the visual part of her message is even more of a tearjerker than the text, and you need to see it. The tribute wasn't just text on a screen. She paired it with a meticulously curated slideshow that packed an emotional punch all on its own. Taylor uploaded a video montage packed with throwbacks tracking their journey from her diaper days all the way to adulthood. It was basically a silent documentary of their love story captured frame by frame over the decades. Here is the kicker: this slideshow was actually made for Mother's Day the previous year, which just twists the knife even deeper. It was meant to celebrate a life still in progress. And now, tragically, it has been repurposed as a memorial to say goodbye to the woman who gave her everything. She set the clip to the track Pure Imagination from the 2023 Wonka film, a choice that felt hauntingly perfect, hinting that love and memories exist in a realm that death can't touch. The reel flashed through countless eras, including stunning shots from Pamela's glory days on the beauty pageant circuit. You could see the poise, the glamour, and the undeniable confidence she carried herself with back then. There were candid snaps from family getaways, easy smiles, and those mundane little moments of joy you don't realise are precious until they are gone. Taylor made sure to include frames featuring her sister, Hayley Hasselhoff, reminding us all that this heartbreak is being shared across the whole family unit. The collage was proof positive of just how tight-knit this crew stayed despite all the Hollywood chaos over the years. Honestly, she didn't need to write a novel. The pictures did all the talking. How do you even compress a mother's legacy into a 30-second clip? How do you measure the massive footprint a mom leaves on your soul after she's gone? But the part that really wrecked people was when Taylor talked about the future, specifically regarding her baby girl, London. Taylor and her hubby, Madison Fiore, just welcomed her back in August. At only 7 months old, little London won't get to make new memories with her grandma. She's going to have to know her through the stories her mom tells. Taylor made a solemn vow that just because Pamela is gone, it doesn't mean she won't be a vibrant part of London's life through shared history. Taylor didn't just post a simple tribute, she made a solemn pledge that little London is going to grow up knowing exactly how legendary her grandmother Pamela truly was. You have to understand, this wasn't some standard PR statement tossed out for the press. It was a blood oath, a vow from the heart. It really drives home the idea that a true superstar's legacy doesn't die when they do. It survives through the stories we tell and the love we pass down to the kids who might never get the chance to meet them face to face. It is about keeping those wild stories in rotation, dusting off the old photo albums, sharing the values she stood for, and making sure her name is always spoken with a warm smile rather than a tear. Taylor also swore to live a life that would make Pamela beam with pride, promising to celebrate her mother every single day, proving that even crushing grief can't totally wipe out the joy she left behind, it just reshapes it. But let's be real, celebrating a lost loved one in this sense doesn't mean you just magically forget the agony of losing them. It means making a conscious choice to embrace love. Even when your heart is shattered into a million pieces, showing the world she can carry this heavy loss with total grace, even when that strength feels borrowed rather than owned. There was another layer to this tribute that really tugged at the heartstrings. And that was the fierce promise regarding family protection and unity. Taylor laid it all out on the line with a clear and emotional commitment to protect her sister Hayley until the end of time. That specific line really jumped off the screen because it highlights a universal truth. Sometimes the worst tragedies are exactly what glue a family back together rather than tearing them apart. When you are drowning in that level of deep sorrow, siblings often become the only anchors you have left to hold on to. Her words were dripping with a sense of responsibility and love, proving she understands that blood bonds are more critical than ever when you are navigating a nightmare, giving that promise serious weight. It was a rallying cry to stand shoulder to shoulder, to prop each other up and to refuse to let the weight of this grief crack the foundation that their love built, making us wonder how often loss completely redefines the roles we play in a family. How often does unbearable pain actually forge a new kind of steel in us? Taylor's message quietly but firmly answered both of those questions for everyone watching. The whole vibe of that Instagram story didn't feel like it went through a publicist or a filter. It felt like a private text message that she bravely decided to share with the world, not for clicks, but for honesty. She wasn't trying to wrap everything up in a pretty bow or offer closure, because anyone who has been there knows that grief is messy and rarely offers a neat ending. Instead, Taylor gave us just a glimpse of what she could bear to share, leaving the rest of the heartbreak rightfully private and unsaid. That delicate dance between speaking out and staying silent is what made the tribute hit so hard. Fans following along weren't just reading a statement. We were all witnessing a moment of raw vulnerability, and her choice to finally speak up after days of radio silence showed just how much she respected the magnitude of this loss. That silence was absolutely necessary for her survival, so when she finally broke it, you knew every word was intentional. Through that gut-wrenching language, those cherished throwbacks and promises rooted in deep love, Taylor Hasselhoff Fior managed to turn her personal nightmare into a shared moment of reflection for all of us. It served as a potent reminder to the masses that love doesn't just stop cold when the person you love leaves the physical world. That love just shapeshifts, finding new avenues to flow through via memories, family connections, and the enduring legacy left behind. The unbreakable bond between this mother and daughter was on full display, not through flashy gestures, but through simple words, honest pain, and those quiet, devastating promises. When it was all said and done, the message left a lingering question hanging in the air that a lot of us are still thinking about. How does love survive the final goodbye? Taylor's tribute quietly offered up the answer, and she didn't need a grand speech to do it. She did it through something way more impactful. Pure remembrance. It showed us all that the story doesn't end just because a chapter closed and someone is gone. It keeps going by shielding your family from the storm, by retelling the legends, and by teaching the next generation exactly who that person was and why they mattered. In her own words, love transformed into an action verb, a vow to carry the torch of those values and warmth that shaped her life, even when the void she left behind hurts in ways words can't fully touch. And just when you think the emotional weight of this tragedy couldn't possibly get any deeper, another voice steps out of the shadows. Hayley Hasselhoff has come forward to share her own shattering heartbreak, but she is bringing something else to the table too: absolute resolve. Her grief is raw, unfiltered, and deeply human. Yet she is pairing it with a vow to stay rock solid, not just for her own sanity, but for the sake of the entire family. So you need to stay with this story until the very end. Because what Hayley reveals next completely reframes this loss into a story of quiet strength and enduring love. Hayley Hasselhoff is opening up about her grief while vowing to remain strong, marking exactly 1 week after the tragic passing of Pamela Bark. It was a quiet yet deeply gut-wrenching moment when Hayley Hasselhoff finally decided to break her silence. She chose Instagram stories on Thursday, March 13th as the venue to let the world into the grief that has been sitting like a ton of bricks on her heart. At 32 years old, Hayley shared sentiments that didn't feel scripted or polished for the media. They felt raw, honest, and ripped straight from a place where the wound is still wide open and the pain is fresh. Her message revealed that time hasn't done a thing to soften the blow yet, and honestly, the passing days are almost making the absence feel louder instead of quieter. Hayley explained that the night before she hit post had been particularly excruciating for her, and she was really struggling to wrap her head around why the emotions were hitting her with such a massive wave of intensity right then. Was it because a full 7 days had officially passed since the loss? Or was it something deeper and harder to explain? She connected that visceral pain to the sound of the rain pouring down outside, noting how the weather eerily mirrored the exact night Pamela passed away, like nature was forcing her to remember that moment. There was a heartbreaking admission that the sound of rain, something that used to be just background noise or even calming, had suddenly morphed into a painful trigger. Yet amidst the sorrow, she expressed a quiet hope that one day that comfort might find its way back to her. She hopes that eventually the rain will feel peaceful again, serving as a beautiful symbol of Pamela's spirit making its journey toward the heavens. That gut-wrenching mix of raw agony and lingering hope sat right there, side by side, woven through every single word of the message, creating a perfect illustration of how grief is a chaotic storm, carrying both light and dark at the exact same time. Hayley didn't hold back, going on to describe exactly how the mornings had transformed into the absolute hardest part of her day, explaining that the simple act of the sun coming up now felt like a sharp, stinging reminder of the massive void left in her life. There was this reflex, a habit, ingrained so deep in her bones, where she would instinctively reach for her phone the second her eyes opened to call Pamela before doing anything else. It didn't matter what time zone she was waking up in or where her crazy life had taken her that week. The location was irrelevant because that connection was the priority. That wasn't just a routine, it was a lifeline built over years of constant unwavering connection, total trust and safety, because Pamela had always been that person, always available, always picking up, and always there to listen to every detail. Losing that daily ritual created a deafening silence that felt completely suffocating, and Hayley was brutally honest, never shying away from admitting just how crushing and painful that sudden quiet had become in her world. But even while drowning in that ocean of pain, there was a vow made, a silent promise that started to take shape amidst the heartbreak. Hayley shared her firm decision to keep pushing forward, to stay standing, even when her knees wanted to buckle, and it wasn't because being strong came naturally or easily during such a nightmare scenario. No, she chose strength because it felt like the only way to truly honour Pamela's legacy and make her mom proud, even from the other side. This wasn't some fake declaration that everything was magically okay, but rather a gritty acknowledgement that moving forward was going to be an active, intentional choice she had to make every single day. Throughout the entire emotional tribute, there was also a massive spotlight placed on family, specifically the incredibly tight bond she shares with her sister Taylor. Hayley made it crystal clear to everyone listening that this heavy burden of grief was not something she was being forced to carry by herself. There was a palpable sense of unity between the two sisters, leaning on one another for survival, protecting each other from the fallout, and clinging tightly to the core values Pamela had drilled into them since childhood. Hayley spoke passionately about pride and resilience, highlighting the vital importance of a sisterhood that had been nurtured over decades, describing their connection as something bulletproof, unbreakable, and capable of enduring anything. The message really drove home the point that Pamela wasn't just a mom, she was a master teacher of connection who taught her girls exactly how to stay tight-knit, how to prop each other up, and how to face life's brutal hardships as a united front. That specific lesson, Hayley implied, was the North Star that would continue to guide them through the darkness. It was a roadmap for life that would last long after Pamela's tragic passing, echoing through their futures. Fast forward a few months, and Hayley took time to reflect even deeper on her grief in a raw essay penned for Project Healthy Minds, offering a much more intimate look into how she had been processing this colossal loss as time marched on. In that vulnerable reflection, she admitted something surprising. There had been absolutely no attempt on her part to overanalyze the tragedy or desperately search for some hidden meaning behind the pain. Instead of driving herself crazy, trying to connect the dots or make sense of the senseless too quickly, she had decided to shift her entire focus solely onto love. Hayley explained that she made a conscious choice to love Pamela in every possible form, to celebrate the massive legacy she left behind, and to simply allow her grief to exist in the room without forcing it to give her answers. That kind of perspective revealed a shocking level of maturity and emotional awareness for someone dealing with such heartbreaks. Recognizing the hard truth that grief doesn't follow a straight logical line, and it certainly doesn't need to explain itself to anyone to be valid. One of the most powerful and gut-wrenching elements of Hayley's tribute was the specific way she described Pamela as her unwavering, constant source of support. Hayley referred to her mom as her absolute biggest support system, making it abundantly clear that this wasn't some distant, formal parent-child relationship, but an intensely close one. The words she shared painted a vivid picture of a bond where communication was non-stop, talking on the phone sometimes 20 times a single day. That level of constant connection spoke volumes about the depth of their trust, their friendship, and the immense emotional safety net they provided for each other. Pamela was never just a parent in the traditional sense. She was a confidant, a legitimate best friend, and the steady rock in the chaos of everyday life. Hayley described feeling completely shattered by the loss, broken into pieces, yet somehow miraculously still feeling whole. She found peace knowing that Pamela's presence wasn't gone. It would continue to live on vividly in memory, in love, and in her lasting influence. That contradiction perfectly captured the confusing, messy nature of grief, where total heartbreak and immense gratitude can somehow exist in the same space without cancelling each other out. The closing words of the tribute carried a depth of affection that felt almost too massive for the English language to contain. Hayley openly admitted that simply saying "I love you" would never feel like enough because the love they shared went light years beyond what words could express. It was described as something permanent, a force of nature that would last beyond time itself and never fade away. That sentiment came rushing back just 2 months later on Mother's Day when Hayley shared another public message filled with aching longing and tenderness. The post expressed a desperate desire to be held again, to feel the physical comfort of Pamela's arms wrapping around her, and to relive even just a single fleeting moment of that closeness. Her words spoke of a love that stretched across multiple lifetimes, suggesting that even death itself didn't have the power to sever that connection. When you take all these messages together, they revealed a raw portrait of grief that felt deeply human and heartbreakingly relatable to anyone who has lost someone. There was absolutely no attempt to present her strength as some kind of perfection or to pretend that healing was a quick, easy fix. Instead, there was just brutal honesty about the pain, the longing, the memories, and the slow, grueling process of learning how to live life alongside a massive loss. Hayley's words illustrated exactly how grief likes to show up in the most ordinary moments, like quiet mornings, sudden rainstorms, and family holidays, turning familiar experiences into stinging reminders of who isn't there. Yet, at the exact same time, she showed how those same moments became the sacred places where that love continued to live and breathe. Through constant remembrance, through staying glued to her family, and by speaking so openly about her journey, Hayley chose to honour Pamela in the most honest, authentic way possible. She didn't do it by pretending the pain had magically faded away, but by letting the love rise up and overpower the loss. In those quiet moments and shared memories, it became crystal clear that this wasn't about moving on at all. It was about holding on in a healthier way, proving that the bond between mother and daughter doesn't just end. The story didn't just end, it evolved into something entirely different. Just when most of us thought the emotional rollercoaster had come to a full stop, a brand new chapter has been ripped open. It is a development that offers some stark clarity, sure, but it also stirs up fresh grief and forces us to have those incredibly difficult conversations we often try to avoid. We finally have official confirmation from the medical examiner regarding the specific cause of Pamela Bach's passing, and the details revealed add a completely new dimension to everything we thought we knew about the situation. You are going to want to stick around until the very last second of this update. The final pieces of this puzzle provide the context, the raw truth, and the deeper understanding necessary to really grasp the magnitude of this heartbreaking story. Breaking medical examiner issues final ruling on Pamela Bach's death. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office has officially confirmed the cause of death for Pamela Bach, the former wife of Baywatch legend David Hasselhoff, bringing a grim sense of resolution to a tragedy that has already devastated her family, friends, and fans worldwide. This official confirmation drops right as her loved ones are still wading through the thick of their grief and shock, trying to process the void she left behind. It is baffling to so many people how a loss of this magnitude could unfold so quietly, so suddenly, and seemingly without warning. According to the official documentation, Pamela passed away on Tuesday, March the 5th, 2024, inside the privacy of a residence in Los Angeles. First responders were dispatched to the home in the mid-afternoon hours after receiving a frantic call that Pamela had been discovered unresponsive. Paramedics did everything they could at the scene to bring her back, but tragically revival efforts failed. She was pronounced dead later that day, with the paperwork noting the time at approximately 3:40 in the afternoon. At the time of her tragic departure, Pamela Bach was exactly 60 years old. In a heartbreaking update, the medical examiner has officially classified the manner of death as suicide, confirming the passing was self-inflicted, though they have chosen to keep specific graphic details out of the press to protect the family's privacy. As is standard protocol in these types of investigations, comprehensive toxicology screenings were conducted. However, officials made it a point to emphasise that the specific results of those chemical tests would remain sealed from the public eye. It is a move designed to maintain a shred of dignity for the deceased and to handle a case involving such deep personal loss with the sensitivity it deserves. As the cold, hard facts of the findings circulated through the community, the reaction was a heavy cocktail of disbelief, profound sadness, and quiet introspection. For the neighbours who lived alongside her, the news was absolutely jarring, especially considering Pamela had been a fixture in that area for quite a long time and was a familiar face to everyone on the block. One resident opened up mentioning that Pamela had appeared a bit more withdrawn and reclusive in recent months compared to her usual self. Yet even then, she remained polite and kind during those brief fleeting encounters. Those small gestures, friendly waves and calm exchanges left absolutely zero indication of the incredibly heavy burden she was carrying internally. Another neighbour described the moment they learned about the death as totally surreal, noting how the normalcy of everyday routines suddenly felt incredibly fragile. People in her inner circle echoed similar sentiments, remembering Pamela as someone who was widely known as warm, expressive, and socially engaged for the vast majority of her life. A longtime friend described her as a person who is typically vibrant and chatty, someone who thrived on deep personal relationships, which makes the lonely circumstances of her death almost impossible to reconcile. That stark contrast between her sunny public warmth and her private struggle has raised a quiet, unsettling question that many people keep asking themselves. How often does profound pain remain completely unseen, even by the people standing right next to us? It is important to remember that Pamela Bach's life was so much more than just a single headline or a tragic final moment. While the public knew her for her acting roles and her marriage to one of television's most recognisable stars, Pamela also lived a life defined by family personal battles and decades of resilience. Friends recalled that in the weeks leading up to the tragedy, Pamela had actually been focusing heavily on reconnecting with her family. She was reaching out, reflecting and spending time in ways that suggested a genuine desire for closeness and grounding. Some described having conversations with her that felt a bit more reflective than usual, but nothing that set off alarm bells at the time. Looking back, these recollections highlight a heartbreaking reality that is often discussed in the wake of a sudden loss. That outward behaviour does not always reveal the storm raging on the inside. Medical professionals and mental health advocates constantly stress that emotional pain can exist quietly, without dramatic outbursts or visible distress, and this case has become a devastating reminder of that truth. The release of the medical examiner's report brings a sense of finality to the investigation, but it doesn't necessarily bring closure to the heart. Officials emphasised that the purpose of their report was to provide factual clarity, not to explain the complex human factors behind the event. The lingering questions about why tragedies like this occur often extend far beyond what any official document or autopsy can answer. The report confirmed the cause and manner of death, but it cannot speak to the emotional landscape or the despair that preceded it. That absence of answers leaves family, friends, and observers stuck in a familiar and difficult space, one where true understanding feels permanently just out of reach. Grief counsellors often note that in moments like this, the human mind desperately searches for signs, patterns, or missed opportunities, even when none were clearly visible. This process, while a natural part of grieving, can be emotionally exhausting and incredibly draining. Public reaction has also carried a notable tone of restraint and respect. Media outlets have largely avoided sensational speculation, and many voices have called for compassion rather than judgment. The conversation has rightfully shifted toward a broader awareness of mental health challenges, especially regarding individuals navigating long careers, public visibility, and private hardship. Advocates have been loud and clear, pointing out that fame and public recognition are not a shield against emotional pain, and that serious internal struggles often persist quietly behind even the most familiar names and faces. These difficult conversations are emphasising just how critical it is to check in on our loved ones, to maintain an open and honest dialogue, and to work harder at reducing the heavy stigma that still surrounds seeking mental health support. While these gentle reminders certainly cannot undo the tragedy of the loss or bring anyone back, many people firmly believe that they can serve as a crucial step in preventing future tragedies from shattering other families. For those who knew Pamela personally and intimately, their memories are focusing much less on the dark circumstances of her death and far more on the bright, vibrant moments of her life. Close friends have been sharing touching recollections of her laughter, her boundless creativity and her fierce loyalty, choosing to honour the full, beautiful picture of who she was rather than just focusing on the final painful chapter. Neighbours in the community spoke about the ordinary sweet moments, passing conversations on the sidewalk shared spaces in the neighbourhood, and the subtle, understated comfort of simply having a familiar face nearby. These small, seemingly insignificant memories carried a massive amount of meaning, reinforcing the truth that a human life consists of many complex layers, not just a single tragic ending. Grief experts often explain that remembering the whole person helps to balance the crushing weight of sorrow with a sense of gratitude, even though the sharp sting of pain inevitably remains. The family, meanwhile, has continued to grieve privately and away from the cameras. Officials made it crystal clear that the family's privacy would be strictly respected and that no further details regarding the investigation would be released unless it was deemed absolutely necessary by the authorities. Public statements emphasised a need for deep compassion and understanding during this time, urging the public and the press to show restraint when it comes to speculation and online commentary. In heartbreaking moments like this, one's silence often serves as a form of protection, allowing a necessary space for mourning without the additional pressure of public scrutiny. Mental health professionals frequently encourage this guarded approach, noting that the grieving process unfolds differently for every single person, and that true healing requires a significant amount of time, patience, and a strong support system. The tragic confirmation of Pamela Buck's death has also prompted a renewed and urgent discussion about the vital importance of having accessible mental health resources for everyone. Various advocacy groups highlighted the desperate need for early intervention strategies, stronger community support networks, and more open, honest conversation about emotional well-being. Many voices stress that asking for help should never be viewed as a sign of weakness and that emotional pain deserves to be treated with the exact same seriousness and urgency as any physical illness. While no single factor can fully explain or prevent every tragedy, raising awareness and fostering human connection remain our central tools in reducing the dangerous feelings of isolation. As the days passed, following the medical examiner's sombre announcement, the public's attention gradually shifted from the initial shock to a state of deep reflection. The loss served as a stark reminder that grief often arrives on our doorsteps without any warning and tends to linger without any set schedule or timeline. Pamela Buck's passing has left behind a trail of unanswered questions, a lasting sense of sadness in the community, and a renewed powerful call for compassion toward those who may be fighting battles we cannot see. In honouring that life, many chose to focus on empathy, understanding, and the shared responsibility we all have to look after one another, even when the signs of struggle are not immediately visible to the naked eye. David Hasselhoff and his family are currently requesting total privacy amidst their time of mourning. In the emotional days following the tragic news of Pamela Buck's passing, a quiet but deeply moving response emerged from actor David Hasselhoff, offering the world a rare glimpse into how a famous family faces such a devastating loss together while choosing dignity over a media spectacle. Hasselhoff released an official public statement acknowledging the death with a heavy heart and expressing deep sorrow on behalf of the entire family, explaining that a profound sadness has followed the recent passing of Pamela Hasselhoff. Those poignant words appeared on Hasselhoff's Facebook page on March 6, just one day after the heartbreaking loss occurred. And the timing alone revealed just how quickly the family felt the need to speak out to the fans, even while they were still being completely overwhelmed by waves of fresh grief. The statement carried absolutely no drama and no long-winded explanations, offering only a direct, raw expression of loss that reflected genuine shock, sadness, and immense respect. Hasselhoff and Pamela shared a long and storied history, having been married from 1989 until 2006. And that shared past added a significant amount of weight to the message. Even years after a separation, those deep family bonds do not simply disappear into thin air. And that reality quietly sat beneath every single word typed out. Many wondered how someone addresses such a massive loss publicly while still protecting something that feels so deeply personal. The answer appeared in the careful, delicate balance of the message, which acknowledged the loss without turning the tragedy into a public performance for the tabloids. Alongside the expression of sorrow came a respectful but firm request for privacy, with Hasselhoff explaining his gratitude for the love and support already shown by fans, but asking for space as the family processed the pain and navigated this incredibly difficult moment. That request carried a particular kind of meaning, especially as neither of their daughters spoke publicly in the immediate aftermath of the news. The silence in this case spoke just as loudly as any words could have. The choice not to rush into releasing public statements reflected a family choosing to grieve privately and authentically, rather than feeling forced to explain their raw emotions to the entire world. Why does privacy matter so much during shattering moments like this? Grief does not follow a production schedule, and true healing rarely happens under a bright spotlight. The request for space felt less like creating distance and more like a necessary protection, allowing room for reflection, memory, and quiet support far away from the flashing cameras and screaming headlines. As the public absorbed the statement, attention naturally turned to Pamela Bark's final digital footprint, a poignant New Year's Eve Instagram post that now stood as an unexpected farewell. In that final post, Pamela shared her joy and excitement about becoming a grandmother, a detail that makes the loss sting even more. It was a post that truly tugged at the heartstrings, featuring a doting grandmother watching little London grow up and calling that journey her absolute greatest blessing. You could practically feel the warmth radiating from her caption, dripping with gratitude and pure love, freezing a beautiful moment of hope and pride in time. When we look back at it now, the upload wasn't about drama or hardship. It was laser focused on the tight-knit bond of family personal growth and chasing happiness. It made a lot of us stop and wonder how a message designed to celebrate life's spark could suddenly feel so incredibly heavy and heartbreaking just a short time later. It just goes to show how meanings shift as time rolls on, turning those memories that were once bursting with pure joy into something that feels deeply bittersweet today. That last social media update stripped away the headlines and statistics, revealing Pamela for who she really was, a loving mother and grandmother, finding her bliss in the simple things. Seeing a grandma captivated by her grandchild's smile painted a vivid picture of a love that went way deeper than fleeting fame or any of her past struggles in the spotlight. It served as a stark reminder to everyone watching that at the end of the day, public figures go through the same private joys and devastating pains as the rest of us. As the family tried to navigate the days ahead, their lack of loud press statements or tell-all interviews hinted at a very intentional choice to put their own unity and emotional healing above feeding the public curiosity. Being a united front doesn't always mean standing at a podium, speaking in unison. Sometimes true unity is found in simply sharing the silence together away from the cameras. The way the family handled this showed they clearly understood that grief isn't something you can package into neat little sound bites, and it certainly doesn't get better with a constant stream of commentary. Of course, waves of support and condolences started pouring in from heartbroken fans and the general public alike. But even with all that noise, the family's reaction remained incredibly measured and calm, leaving us to ask why that kind of restraint hits us so hard in the feels. Maybe it resonates because it feels authentic, since loss has a way of stripping away the fluff and leaving only the essentials, making words scarce, but infinitely heavier in meaning. Hasselhoff's statement was notable because he didn't try to write a biography summarising her entire life or offer excuses for the circumstances. Instead, he kept his focus strictly on acknowledging the situation, expressing gratitude, and firmly setting necessary boundaries. His approach was a gentle reminder that mourning in the public eye doesn't mean you owe the world a backstage pass to your pain, proving that love and respect can exist without detailed explanations. So Pamela's memory remains preserved through those captured moments of shared happiness and deep family connection, continuing to speak volumes quietly through the touching words that had already been shared with the world. That final Instagram post, which was centered entirely on gratitude and the beauty of new life, turned into a lasting reflection of exactly where her joy lived right near the end. For a lot of people, seeing that message helped soften the blow of the sadness, offering a comforting reminder that love doesn't just vanish into thin air when we lose someone. That love lingers on in our memories, in shared smiles, and in the simple, undeniable truth that family bonds continue to hold strong even long after we say goodbye. As we move forward into 2026, the family's request for privacy remains a boundary that absolutely deserves our full respect. Healing is rarely an overnight process, and every family navigates that dark path differently. This moment showed us a family choosing calm reflection and closeness over a public spectacle. In a fast-paced world that usually demands hot takes and immediate reactions, their decision to slow everything down really stood out. It proves that sometimes the strongest response you can give isn't necessarily the loudest one in the room. Sometimes strength looks like a quiet acknowledgement, a simple request for space, and a final note of gratitude left behind to remind us all that love once given never truly disappears. And with that heavy but important reflection, we've reached the end of today's video. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. If you found value in this story, please go ahead and smash that like button, leave a comment and subscribe for more updates. And if you're looking for more gripping stories, make sure to click right now on the next video popping up on your screen.